Snowdance Online. I'm Emily and welcome to the Falcon Ridge rental shop. I am going to do a quick little demo on how to hot wax or glide wax your skis. This is something that you can get set up in your garage or your backyard and do on your own. That being said, pro shops, little shops, there's tons of great shops in the area, lots in Winnipeg. They're great to support and they have great knowledge and all the setup already. So I certainly wouldn't discourage you from continuing to use their services if this isn't like something that interests you. This isn't something you have to do on your own, but it is something that you should do because waxing acts as a lubricant to help you go faster on your skis or snowboard. And it also is an important tool to maintain the quality of your skis or snowboard. I'm just gonna keep saying skis, but it also means snowboard. I think you all know that. Yeah, basically waxing is kind of like a moisturizer on your hand where it seals in the base of your skis and prevents it from drying out. In terms of how often you should wax, that's really up to how much you're skiing, how intent on going as fast as possible you are. If you're a pro skier, you'll be waxing between every race, every run on the downhill. If you're not, you might just wax once a season. Maybe you'll wax a few times throughout the season. If you're getting out there lots, maybe you'll try to make it a weekly habit, that sort of thing. That said, wax is fairly expensive, so you want to be, not wasting wax and waxing the right amount. Your skis will tell you when they need to be waxed. It's kind of ideal if you don't get to this point, but if you do, it's okay. You can fix it with waxing. This is an example of a nice black base, and they're great for being able to see how dry your skis are. If you look closely, you can see that they're starting to turn a little gray, especially down here. You can see it's really gray, and that's because it's dried out and needs a coat of wax. So we're gonna do these skis today. These are cross-country skis. The basics here of how to wax applies to downhill skis, snowboards, cross-country skis, all the same. This is about glide wax, so like hot waxing, not about grip wax, which you use in addition to glide wax when you're diagonal stride traditional skiing. Okay, so some things that you'll need some wax. There's quite a range in brands and types of wax, but basically your hot wax will come in a bar form. And if you, again, just go to a local shop and ask for information about, I don't have like one type of brand that's better than all the others. I think what's more important is you get the right temperature. There's a range in temperatures from really warm waxes to really cold. And here in Manitoba, we basically always just use the cold waxes. So I think this one is -10 to -32 or something. And that's what I use for most of the months. Like once March comes and things are really warming up for the flop it and stuff, then I'll start moving on to the warmer wax. Warmer wax, if your waxes aren't labeled and you're not too sure what temperature they are, every brand has a color code, so you can always look that up. But also, softer waxes warmer waxes are softer. They're just like way easier to peel off and stuff. Colder waxes are harder. Yeah, so you got your wax. You'll need an iron. So we have like a fancy waxing iron. It's not that fancy, but it's nice. And it's nice, but it basically is no different than your normal household iron, other than it has these nice channels that help direct the wax when you're melting it onto the skis. But for years we did just use a normal household iron. This one always ran a little bit hot, so I had to be really careful to kind of toggle it on and off to get the temperature just right. But I think it is better that you have an iron that doesn't have holes on it. A lot of them have like steam and stuff, and there's the holes. You shouldn't You shouldn't be using one with holes because they'll get clogged up with wax, and that's probably dangerous. And then for cross-country ski waxing, you'll need a form of some sort to support your skis, because cross-country skis have quite a bit of shape to them. There's quite an arc in their, and lots of bend in them. And what a form does is it supports the whole ski so that you can kind of use lots of pressure and scrape all the way through without it bouncing around too much. If you're waxing a snowboard, you can either just take the bindings off and then just find a flat surface to sit it on, or you can, you know, prop it up. We have these little stands over here that just lift it up so that the bindings can hang below and it won't get in the way. So it kind of looks like this, propped up like that. And same thing with downhill skis. The one annoying thing about downhill skis is they have these brakes that really get in the way when you're trying to wax. So we cut up a bunch of inner tubes and use them as like big elastics to basically hold down the brakes. So it's a nice flat surface. Just like that. Doo -doo -doo. Okay, so you got your wax, you got your iron, then you'll need a scraper. Plastic scraper is good to use. You can get them in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Again, just go to a ski shop. This is like a snowboard scraper. It's nice and wide. It's nice to have some smaller scrapers too, so you can really get in on certain spots. They come in different thicknesses. I like to have something fairly thin that I can kind of bend. It's better not to use a metal scraper unless you really want to flatten out your base, because if you use a metal scraper, you'll start scraping off base in addition to wax. But we don't want that right now. We're just focusing on waxing our skis. We just want to scrape wax. And then the last thing is you can get these nice brushes. Here we have a coarse one and a fine one. These are really great for getting all the last of the wax off and really cleaning out your skis. So they're really fast as soon as you put them in on the snow. They're not essential. You can always wax your skis and scrape it off as best you can, and then just start skiing around with it and let the snow take off the last of the wax. That's something that works, but yeah, it doesn't work if you want to like wax your skis and then go straight into a race kind of thing. Okay, so I have my form secured here with some C-clamps, and I have put my ski in place. You can see how it's, yeah, it just fits the form nicely and is nice and snug in there, so it's not going to be popping or jumping around as I'm waxing. And I've got my iron heating up. If you ever see your iron smoking, the wax smoking on the iron, that means your iron is too hot. It's burning the wax, and that's not what we want. It's also important to remember that wax is a petroleum-based product, so if it's smoking and you're inhaling it, that's not good for you. So while that's heating up, one other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give my base a quick clean. So we've got this giant tub of Biocitron base cleaner. You can get way smaller versions of this, and it comes in spray form too, which would probably be nice to use. But this is useful for cleaning the bottom of your skis. You don't want any sort of particulates or any contaminants on the skis that you're actually like waxing in and scraping your base. Your base is fairly fragile. You'll notice that your skis can get scratched up and stuff like that pretty easily, so anything you can do to prevent that sort of stuff is great. So yeah, I'm basically just put a little bit on a rag and giving it a nice wipe. You can give it a brush down if you're worried about it. These are skate skis, so they don't have any grip wax, but if you are waxing classic skis, and they'll have the section with the grip wax in it, so you have to make sure you get all of that off And to do that, you'll have to use a scraper, and you'll have to use a groove cleaner as well to get the wax out of the middle there. So if you're doing this at home or setting up a wax station and you don't have any way to circulate air, you might want to consider doing this somewhere where you can crack a window, where you can, maybe you want to just do it outside, set up a bench outside or in a garage. Waxing is also super messy. Once we scrape the wax, it'll come off in like little bits like this that just get all over the house. So yeah, this is not like a living room activity unless you have a kind of gnarly living room, then maybe you don't mind all that. Okay, my iron is heated up nice, so I think we're good to start putting some wax on these puppies. My base cleaner has dried and I've wiped most of the excess off. So with waxing, this stuff's pretty expensive, as I think I mentioned before. You don't need to like have a thick coat of wax on it. You just want the whole surface to be covered evenly. And there's a couple of ways of doing that. You can either just warm your stick up and then just put it straight on like that. And this is a really nice way to be economical about how much wax you use. You can see, or you can do the old school way of just dripping it right on. This will use a lot more wax, but you'll be sure that it's all covered. It is really important that you're not touching the iron to the base of the ski for too long. I'm not really touching it, I'm just skimming right along the top. Yeah, so two options there for applying the wax. So once you've applied a thin layer of wax on, then you can use the iron to spread it out so it's evenly dispersed all over the ski. Again, you want to be really careful that you're not leaving the iron on the base at any point, because it can damage the base, it can start to melt it. If you ever see bubbles forming on your base, that means your iron's way too hot or you're leaving it on there too long, and to move off, you're damaging the base if there's bubbles. I'm just basically applying a thin layer evenly spread out over the whole ski. I'll give you a closer look here. Okay, so here's where I've done. It's nice smooth layer, and here's where I have not done. And we're basically just ironing it out. This is definitely the most satisfying part of waxing. Okay, so we've got wax, a nice coat of wax on the skis, and then we need to let the wax sit on the skis and completely cool down and dry. There's like different information on how long is ideal to leave the wax on your skis before you scrape it off. I'm not sure how much it really matters, but what is important is that you leave it for at least half an hour to let the skis cool right down and the wax harden, and then it's go time for scraping. Also, something I didn't mention before is it's important to put wax on warm skis because the pores of the skis are nice and open and ready to receive the wax. Yeah, don't bring your skis right in from the cold and throw wax on them. It won't be as effective. So yeah, we'll let this baby sit for half an hour, and in the meantime I will put some wax on the other ski. All right, so I've finished both my skis. I've unplugged my iron. Move it out of the way so you don't burn yourself. And I've given the skis a good half hour for the wax to harden and to really soak in there. Personally, I usually leave my skis overnight and then I scrape them the next morning. And at the end of the season, it's kind of nice to just throw a coat of wax on your skis before you store them, or if you're going to travel or anything like that. It's just nice to keep them protected and keep them from drying out over the summer. Okay, so now it's time to start scraping. So yeah, you grab your scraper. These get really gummed up with wax. It's nice to keep them nice and clean, and you can even sharpen the edges just with a block and a little bit of sandpaper. And it's pretty just standard. You're just scraping off all the wax you just put on there. The point of waxing skis isn't to like add a layer of wax. It's really just a very fine amount of lubricant and sealing in the pores of the skis. You don't really want any wax sitting on top because that'll really slow you down. So yeah, if you don't get all the wax off your skis and you try to go skiing, you'll find that it's incredibly slow, but it will speed up the more you use it, because just skiing on it takes the wax off on your own. And you want to use an angle like this with your scraper. You want to be careful to keep it nice and flat on the base. You don't want to be leaning too much on one edge or anything like that. You don't want to gouge into the base. If you're using a plastic scraper, you don't have to worry too much about that. And you always want to scrape from tip to tail in this direction. And I've also heard that scraping in long fluid strokes is better than doing like little sections. Sometimes you got to really work out certain little spots because there's more wax there or whatever. But yeah, here's how it looks. And oh yeah, waxing's a messy business. It's nice to have a garbage can handy and a brush for kind of cleaning up wax discards as you go, but you're always going to make a bit of a mess when you're waxing. That's why our rental shop is always a bit of a mess. The more wax you put on your skis, the longer it takes to scrape it all off. Right, I'll try to move the camera so you get a better angle close up. If you're doing a pair of alpine skis or a snowboard, it takes a lot longer than a thin little pair of cross-country skis. And I'm putting quite a bit of weight on my scraper here, really trying to get as much wax off with every stroke. See, we're getting less and less with each stroke here.
Here's your heat gun.
Thanks, Terrell.
Yeah,
I'm doing a video.
Oh, wow.
You're in it now. Okay, and you want to make sure you get the wax out of the groove of your ski too. So you're going to use this little thing that looks like a pen. I often lose this and just literally use a Bic pen to do this part. But you're basically just sticking it in the groove and pushing all the wax out of there. Trying to keep as straight a line as you can. And on a lot of waxing, they have this little section in the corner, and what I believe that's for is cleaning up the edges. Just getting all the overflow wax off. Okay, and once you've scraped and scraped, and you're feeling pretty good about not too much wax is coming off anymore, that's when you're gonna pull out the brushes. I'm gonna change the angle because this is weird. Okay, so we have these two little waxing brushes. We'll start with the coarse one, and this is meant to get the last of the wax out of all the any little scratches, any little bits that I've missed with the scraper. So I'm just giving it a general brush over to get the loose stuff off. And then I'll put all my weight over it and really give it a heavy rub. And you'll see there's kind of a fine powder of wax coming out. Okay. That's looking pretty good now. The last of that wax off there. And then you can give it a really fine polish with this brush. If you just take these out for a ski, this will also do the same thing after a few minutes. And there you have a freshly waxed ski. Now I'll do the same thing with the other one. And there you have it. Two freshly waxed skis. Something that you can now do at home with just a little bit of equipment and setup. Hopefully that was somewhat informative and perhaps somewhat entertaining. From all of us here at the Falcon Ridge Rental Shop, we wish you a happy snow dance.